All right, let's talk about the economic architecture of American poverty. In a country that's all about opportunity, why does it feel like it's getting harder and harder for so many people to actually get ahead? Today, we're going to dive deep into the economic structures that are really shaping this reality.
Have you ever felt like you're just running on an economic treadmill? You know the feeling, right? You're working super hard, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but at the end of the month, you're pretty much right back where you started. If that hits home for you, trust me, you are not alone. That feeling, it's not just in your head. It's a structural reality for millions of people.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, we've got to start by separating the myth from the math. We're going to look at this powerful story we all tell ourselves about financial success, and then we're going to put it right up against the cold, hard numbers.
So on one hand, you've got the American narrative, right? The whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps idea. The story says that if you just work hard enough, you're going to make it. But on the other hand, you've got the economic math. And the math tells a totally different story. It shows us a system where the cost of just living, the absolute basics, is rising way, way faster than most people's paychecks. And that right there, that's a huge conflict between our ideals and the actual financial reality.
And just to be super clear, this conversation isn't about motivation or how hard people are working. Not at all. We're putting all that aside. What we're really talking about is the economic architecture, the actual framework, the systems and forces that create this financial landscape we all have to find our way through.
Okay, so this brings us to the very foundation of the problem, a dynamic you could call the great income squeeze. And believe me, this is where the math really starts to pull away from the myth.
So at the heart of this is inflation and rising living costs. But look, we're not talking about prices just creeping up a little bit here and there. We're talking about a massive surge in the cost of the absolute essentials, the stuff you literally cannot live without. Things like housing, healthcare, and education. Their costs haven't just gone up, they have exploded. It basically means that your dollar today buys you a whole lot less than it used to.
And wow, this chart just lays it all out there, doesn't it? Take a look at that little bar for wage growth over the last 30 years. Okay, got it? Now, look at the bars for housing and higher education. I mean, they just dwarf wage growth. It's not even close. This isn't just a gap, it's a massive chasm. This is the income squeeze in one picture.
And this quote, man, it just captures the result of that chart so perfectly. The starting line for financial stability has moved further and further away from millions. Think about that. For every new generation, that first step towards a secure life, buying a home, saving up, it just gets pushed farther and farther away.
So what happens when your paycheck just doesn't cover the bills? Well, you have to find another way, right? And that brings us to the next major piece of this whole architecture, borrowing to get by.
It's interesting. Debt used to be seen as this tool for opportunity. You'd get a mortgage to buy a house or a loan to start a business. But for so many people today, debt has shifted from being a tool for opportunity to just a mechanism for survival. It's become the bridge you need to get from one paycheck to the next. It's how you pay for groceries or cover that unexpected car repair.
And this chart here really shows you the breakdown. Yeah, mortgages are the biggest slice, that makes sense. But look at all the other pieces of that pie. Student loans, credit cards, auto loans. This is the kind of debt that's filling that gap between what people earn and what they have to spend. And each one of these brings its own set of problems.
Let's zoom in on the student loan burden, for example. I mean, this isn't just any old debt. It's a massive financial weight that gets dropped on people's shoulders right as they're starting their careers. It can completely change their financial future, delaying huge life milestones like buying a house or even starting a family.
And then you've got compounding credit card interest. This is a big one. It's this incredibly powerful and kind of scary force. It means you're not just paying interest on what you originally borrowed. Nope. You're paying interest on top of the interest. It's a formula that can make a pretty small debt just explode into something totally crippling, especially if you can only afford to make those minimum payments.
Okay, so let's connect the dots here. You've got rising costs, you cover those costs with debt, and then that debt grows and grows because of interest. When you put all those pieces together, it's not just a list of problems anymore. No, it creates the core engine of this whole thing, the debt reinforcement loop.
Let's walk through how this vicious cycle works, because this is really the key. Okay, step 1, your income just isn't enough to cover rising costs. Step 2, you use debt, credit cards, a loan, whatever, to fill that gap. Step 3, now a chunk of your income has to go to paying off the interest on that debt. Step 4, that leaves you with even less money for your actual costs, and forget about saving.
Which leads to step 5, you need even more debt just to get by. See how that works? It's a loop, and it is incredibly hard to escape.
And the real-world consequence of this loop? It's a shocking lack of financial breathing room. Get this, more than 40% of Americans would have a hard time covering a simple $400 emergency expense. Just let that sink in. When you're stuck in that debt cycle, there's no safety net. One flat tire, one unexpected medical bill, and the whole thing can just completely spiral out of control.
All right, so we've looked at all of the individual pieces. Now let's take a step back and really understand the full architecture that we've been talking about.
So we can really break it down into these pillars of financial precarity. First, you've got stagnant real wages. Then, the hyperinflation of essential costs, housing, healthcare, all of it. Third, the normalization of what we can call survival debt. Fourth, the incredible power of compounding interest working against you. And finally, all of this leads to the depletion of savings and any real chance to build wealth.
And this, right here, is probably the most important thing to understand. These are not 5 separate, isolated problems. They are an interconnected system. Each one of these pillars supports and reinforces the others. Together, they create this powerful economic structure that can trap people, no matter how hard they work.
So once you see this whole thing as a system, it leaves you with a really big question. If the economy is an architecture, then who are the architects? You have to ask, right? What policies, what decisions, what priorities created this design, and maybe more importantly, what would it take to build something new?